Norway. The utter wildness of your wilderness was always like a dream to me of magic utterly extreme, in soaring altitudes to terrifying blizzards, furiously assaulting you like trolls and offering the mightiest challenges against your whole existence and your life. But what a splendid, glorious freedom! Sitting there enthroned on Prekestolen, far above the fjord that stretches out from one horizon to another far beneath you, in magnetic magic vertigo of horrifying ecstasy, and you are all alone with all the mountains, that fantastic giant world of terrors, but of freedom also, most of all, and beauty, which inspires you to just go on to higher glaciers, walking steadily, triumphantly across the moors and swamps, ignoring all the abysses, to keep on course in soundest wilderness in this most sane and healthy, challenging and beautiful of Nordic countries. Norge. Din vildmarksöverväldigande vildhet var för mig en dröm av den extremaste magi på oerhörda höjder i konfrontation med snöstormsfasor, i ursinnigt angrepp som av trollarméer, generösa med erbjudanden om livshotande utmaningar som ställer all din existens på kant mot stupet, men vad sagolik och idealisk frihet. Tronande på Prekestolen ovan molnen, skyhögt över fjorden som där ligger utsträckt underlig. Från horisont till horisont som universums avgrund i magnetisk, magisk svindel av förintande extas är du helt ensam med de magnifika bergens värld, de oerhörda och massiva jättarnas förfärliga domän av terror, men av frihet lika mycket och av skönhet bländande i renhet, som betvingar dig till ständigt högre klättring mot glaciärerna, med raka steg förbi de öde hedarnas försåtliga moras och träsk, som om ej avgrunderna fanns där överallt omkring dig, hållande rak kurs i denna friskaste av världar, bland de rena hälsosamma fjällens absoluta skönhet, i det mest romantiska och sköna och utmanande av kanske alla länder i Europa. Tired of love. When you get tired out of love, it's only the beginning of another love affair, since love will never leave you evermore at peace again, once you have given something up to her, for she will never give you up, love being in herself the highest constancy that never shall abandon you, no matter how hard you try to abandon her, no matter for what hard good reasons. Women always turning you into cuckold for the loss of time and money, for their shallow company, which always ends by their deceiving you with gayer and less boring, shallower and temporary lovers of no faith, while if you really know what love is, that love shall not leave you ever, but remain as true and constant as a virgin, ever new and fresh and young, and you shall always find your love again, renewing all your youth and joy of life with her that never even in her thought shall lose her trust and faith in you, for that undying love which is the only certainty you have in life as long as you exist. Scotland. The land of meanness and of whiskey, stark rationalism and common sense, and splendid clarity and engineering, with one of the finest capitals in Europe, tragic freedom fighter never reaching independence, but heroic nonetheless in all those bloody efforts. What a passion play of history, with Mary Queen of Scots a central figure for all pure romanticism in Europe, that actually was born in Scotland, with the bard Macpherson and his Ossian songs, resulting in explosions of romanticism all over Europe, not just with Lord Byron and Sir Walter Scott, but carried on by Stevenson and Conan Doyle, two geniuses of clarity and unsurpassed as brilliant storytellers of inspiring imagination. Well, your medicine remains the best and most reliable on earth, for which I always shall remain most grateful, willingly forgetting your inhospitable meanness, for the splendor of your highlands, and the dreams of freedom that will never die. Skottland, snålt med allt men generöst med whisky, utmärks du av stark rationalism och sunt förnuft och fast förankring i konkret sund realism med en av Europas vackraste som huvudstad. Du frihetskämpe som ej någonsin vann frihet i alla dina tragiska och blodiga försök, men vilken underbar passionshistoria! Mary Stuart utgör medelpunkten för all romantik i Europa, som faktiskt började i Skottland genom James Macphersons Ossians sånger, exploderande i romantik och inspirerad efterföljd i hela Europa, inte bara genom Walter Scott och Byron, men utvecklad vidare av Stevenson och Conan Doyle, och överträffade genier av psykologi och forskarfantasi i humanistisk klarhet och intelligens. Din medicin förblir den mest pålitliga i världen, vilket jag förblir dig alltid tacksam för, och glömmer villigt då din snålhets ogästvänlighet för härligheten i ditt högland och dess frihetsdrömmar, som för alltid skall fortsätta inspirera mänskligheten med sitt patos, inte bara genom whisky. Ireland. Where did that madness come from, that irrational hysteria of subnormality that always colored Ireland's history with blood and dreadfully exaggerated tragedies, which more often than not turned Ireland to an isle of widows dressed in black and crying, going on in endless sorrow over senseless sons forever, while the witless hooligans just keep on sacrificing lives and families, and not just themselves, but innocents in countless numbers above all? Was it that fatal Irish whiskey lethally combined with Catholic fanaticism and superstition, or that harsh Atlantic climate with incessant rains, 300 days a year at least, that always drove the Irish down the drain, out of their minds and into obligatory alcoholism? I cannot say. All I can do is cry with all those widows, sonless mothers, families that lost their fathers, and their brothers and their children for no good at all, as if the lunacy of violence was reason in itself for any self-destruction. Irland, var kom all denna dårskap från, den abnormala hysterin av irrationalism som alltid färgade den gröna ön med röd av blod, med ständigt gräsligt överdrivna tragedier, vilka är som oftast omvandlade Irland till en ö av svarta änkor som blott kunde gråta för att aldrig upphöra i outsäglig sorg och klagan över galna söner som i envist raseri blott fortsatte att offra inte blott sig själva, men familjer, liv och oskyldiga framförallt i ständigt stigande oräkneliga antal. Var det den fatala whiskyn bryggd på irländsk malt i lömsk kombination med den katolska fanatismen, eller var det omänskliga klimatet med det upphörliga vågräta regnen från Atlanten som ju alltid piskat Irland minst 300 dagar varje år, som drev de stackars irerna till ständigt digrare förtvivlan, bort från allt förstånd och nära på obligatoriskt till alkoholism? Nej, jag förstår det inte. Allt vad jag kan göra är att gråta med de svarta änkorna, sonlösa mödrarna, familjer utan fäder, syskon utan bröder, och där även barnen offrats, fullständigt i onödan, som om det nakna våldet var skäl nog för vilken blind självdestruktivitet som helst. Portugal, wondrous little country of the sea, with such an intimate relationship of all your ages with that vastness of the utmost depths of all the world, the ocean rather temperate and mollified around your latitudes and warm as such, like something of a universal mother, that has marked you as one of the gentlest nations with the softest of the Latin languages, a language made for love and music, which indeed Brazil, that formidable daughter, just across next door of yours, has proved, while you remain a dream of sweetest melancholy, melting off in fado, singing all the time, while once, which we must not forget, you were the queen of all the oceans of the world, who organized the first colonial empire overseas and was the last to give that effort up. Still you retain the ocean with its fathomless profundity of dreams, which is your special personal possession, transforming it into the loveliest song of all the ages, that of your peculiar love affair with all the universal ocean. Portugal, sällsamma nation och lilla land vid havet med så säreget intimt förhållande med Atlanten, genom alla tider, grubblande konstant och melankoliskt över djupet i det stora, i det generösa havet som vid dina latituder håller sig mest tempererat och vid jämnmod som en moders varma saktmod och universalitet, som har besjälat dig till något av det mjukaste av länder, vilket tydligt framgår av ditt ljuva språk som är som gjort för kärlek och musik, vilket minsann Brasilien, denna din mest formidabla dotter, har bevisat där på andra sidan sundet, medan du förblir en dröm av ljuvaste melankoli som smälter bort i fadosjungande mest hela tiden, medan vi dock aldrig borde glömma att du en gång var samtliga oceaners drottning, som organiserade det första sjöimperiet och var sist i världen om att övergiva det. Dock har du kvar din ocean med dess otransaklighet av drömmars djuphet, vilket alltid skall förbli din arvedel, som du omvandlar till den skönaste av alla tiders sånger, den om din unika kärleks innerlighet i förhållandet med den universella oceanen. Bulgaria, exotic wilderness beyond Illyria, ancient kingdom of the Iron Age, a wondrous fairyland of fantasy, where culture rules with music, driving over all those nonsense games of temporary phases of politics, only leaving chaos and disorder in behind, while the original Slavonic roots remain deep buried in the history of ancient times, when you gave birth to all the Slav world, with its ancient language breeding others, spreading out your culture over Eastern Europe. You are still the core of all that world, containing in yourself the very heart of Slavic essence, with its special talents for exactitude in linguistics, science, intellectual universalism and humanism, all emanating from that Balkan wilderness among the snowy mountains with their secrets, monasteries hidden deep in distant valleys, used to the ordeal of difficult survival. Since I first was introduced to you, I have remained a faithful lover of your strange originality among the hills, with splendid music crying out for the necessity and urge of freedom that can never be put down by any crushing, brutal force of history. Bulgarien, karga vildmarksrike av exotisk drömvärld, någonstans bortom Illyrien från flydda tider, kungarike mera uråldrigt än järnåldern, som alltid dominerats av kulturen och musiken, som kört städs över alla världens narrspel av farsartad politik som bara lämnat kaos efter sig, medan dina sega djupa rötter dock förblir förankrade i urhistoriens konkreta fasthet, när du frambringade slavernas nationer med ditt uråldriga språk som moder åt dem alla, spridande kulturen över hela östra Europa. Du är alltjämt kärnan av dem alla, inneslutande i ditt så intensiva innerliga hjärta, den slavoniska essensen av den särskilda begåvningen för språk och vetenskap, intellektuell exakthet, universalism och humanism, allt helt spontant utmynnande från de balkanska höjdernas stormpinta vildhet bland de snöklädda bergskedjorna med deras hemligheter gömda djupt i skrevor och raviner, undanskymda dalars kloster, vana vid försvårad överlevnad. Sedan jag först blev introducerad hos din vildhet har jag troget varit digen trofast älskare av din originalitets exotiska särprägel, där du aldrig kunnat hålla tyst med din musik som alltid ropat ut sitt vilda krav på frihet, dess nödvändighet och nödtvång som aldrig kunnat tystas eller underkuvas av någon galen övermakts förkrossande brutalitet i all historiens ständiga bärsärkargång. Golden friendship. Old love doesn't rust, Norwegian proverb. While it lasts, it will forever grow, increase more steadfastly in value than whatever gold mine, diamond lode, or any fortune in the fastest stock. And all you have to do is to be faithful, keep in touch, maintain the good relationship, and never let her down. It will reward itself more affluently than any worldly riches, for there is no rarer and more precious thing than friendship that continues constantly, maturing in reliance, confidence, and faith, like priceless metal that will never rust. And there's the secret love, like everything, must grow with age to gradually grow old, but with maturity of lasting age, and the more old it grows, the less it will be liable to rust, the surer it will last, and there's infinity for you. Gyllene vänskap, gammal kärlek rostar icke, norskt ordspråk. Medan den består så skall den alltid växa, säkrare i värde än vad guld, juveler, värdepapper och börssatsningar som helst. Och allt som du behöver göra är att vara trogen, upprätthålla relationen och kontakten och ej någonsin förråda eller svika den. Det blir sin egen generösaste belöning, mera värdefull än någon världslig rikedom med tiden, för det finns något mera rart och värdefullt än vänskap som består och aldrig sviker, mognande i trohet och pålitlighet, som en edel oskattbar metall som aldrig rostar. Och där har du hemligheten. Kärlek, liksom allt, är dömd att åldras för att småningom bli gammal, men med ålderns mognad och ju mer den åldras, desto mindre kan den börja rosta, desto säkrare består den, och där har du evigheten. Romania. Let the gypsy dancers whirl with violins intoxicating by their splendor, overwhelming anyone with a delirium of delight, with this enchanting people, very down to earth and natural, with scoundrels everywhere. There never was a true Romanian who was not a cheat, but very entertaining, skillful and delightful, with a sense of humor always, and a wonderful imagination, probably the most advanced in Europe, since in only those Carpathian sharp fantasteries of moonscapes, wolfish wilderness, and natural surrealism could such a story as of the immortal Dracula have been invented, utter evil with a sense of humor. It's impossible to fathom all this tantalizing country with its wonders and amazing scenery, but only to get just a touch of it will mark you with some stamp of incredulity forever. Rumänien. Låt zigenardansen virvla med fiolerna berusande med sin besatthet, överväldigande vem som helst med sitt delirium av förförelse, av detta underbara folk av jordnära naturlighet och nästan bara skojare. En sann rumän var alltid en bedragare, men mycket underhållande och rolig i sin skicklighet, med alltid en god bit av blixtrande spiritualitet och humor och en enastående rik fantasi, antagligen den högst utvecklade i Europa, då det knappast någon annanstans än från Karpaterna med deras skarpa månlandskaps surrealism, varglika vildhet och absurda öververklighet var möjligt för en sag och legend som Dracula att uppstå. Den totala ondskan kryddad med förförisk humor. Det är omöjligt att fatta detta omfattande land med sina häpnadsväckande förunderliga landskap, men att bara gripas av en fläkt därav är nog för att bli märkt för livet av dess magiska fantasteris otrolighet. Your absence. I don't mind your absence, since you are the closer to me for our separation, which breeds the more longings for our reunification, which in fact just bring us closer spiritually to each other as related souls of more than only twin capacity. The more you leave me, the more close you stay with me, the deeper in my heart, as if a natural and physical divorce was something utterly impossible, since absences will just increase the presences. That is the operation of true love, the proof of how it works and its manifestation, when it is so much profounder in its spiritual reality to spite all physical reality, and overcome it with a so much truer realism. Poland. Today, September 22nd, the Solidarity movement in Poland was born in 1980. 500 years ago, a kingdom of enlightenment, a paragon for every country, greatest among nations, she has fallen ever since to constantly more agonizing depths of tragedy, disaster, ruin, national catastrophe, and what is worse, engulfed by Russia, Austria, and Germany, she has, like no other nation, bled to death not only once but ever and again, as if the first complete annihilation was not total and enough, but had to thoroughly be followed by oppression, tyranny, and what is worse. The Second World War was the worst finale that has ever been experienced by a nation persecuted by disasters, culminating in the utter and grotesque destruction of the capital, the Warsaw Ghetto marking the supreme atrocity of history. Still, Poland rises once again from smoking ruins to survive and start another revolution, but of freedom this time, giving birth this very day to Solidarność, that heroically started the entire liberation of all Eastern Europe. Germany and Russia, that so gluttonously wallowed in devouring Poland, are no more as autocratic empires, but went to dust and in dishonor, while the Poles survived them with their dreams and hopes of freedom, to eventually make dictatorial oppression vanish from all Europe, by showing us the way to make the Berlin Wall and Soviet Union collapse. Polen. Idag, 22 september 1980, föddes Polens Solidarność, solidaritet. För 500 år sedan var du främst i Europa, störst bland dess nationer, föredömligt upplyst, men har sedan oavbrutet fallit ständigt djupare i mer förtvivlad olycka och tragedier utan tal och utan botten, uppslukat av Österrike, Tyskland och av Ryssland för att aldrig upphöra förblöda, som om din fullständiga förintelse ej var tillräcklig, men var nödvändig att följas upp av tyranni, förtryck och vad som värre var. Det andra världskriget var den mest oerhört förskräckliga final som någonsin har upplevts av ett land förföljt av olycka, som kulminerade med den förfärliga förintelsen av huvudstaden, där Warszawa-gettot blev det värsta övergreppet i historien. Ändå har du rest dig från ruinerna igen och överlevt för att inleda en helt ny revolution för frihet denna gång, då du idag just födde Solidarność, solidaritet, som startade heroiskt en befrielse av hela östra Europa. Rysslands kejsardöme, liksom Tysklands, som så frossade att förtära Polen, slutade i vanära och ingenting, allt medan Polen överlevde dem med sina frihetsdrömmar för att småningom få all östeuropeisk diktatur att upplösas, med att visa vägen till att få Berlins mur och Sovjetunionen att kollapsa. The remnants. What remains when you have lost it all, when all your life is down in ruins, when your love is lost in beds of others, when it has been proved again and once too much that love and women never can be trusted, when you are betrayed and lost in darkness, economically ruined by the laws of cynicism pervading all society and dominating it with ruthless, senseless unhumanity, and you are left alone, abandoned in a stormy sea of tears on one of those last melting ice flakes that the egoism of global warming keeps reducing in the maddest race in history for flimsy shallowness. And you are thrown out of your own with no excuses by the rules of that infernal asphalt jungle of the city that is worse and crueler than any natural free wilderness. What can be there still when you have lost everything? Be calm. You haven't lost a thing. It's all still there. Your love, your friendships, all that universe of learning, all that freedom of the ever life-vibrating cosmos. It's all there whatever happens, and by losing all, you simply are a winner, having found it all again, the meaning and the love of all your life. Russia, mammoth nation of abnormity of everything, the hardest tyranny on earth, the deepest soul, a history of almost only bloodshed, massacres, oppression, suffering, and universal martyrdom, a tragedy of never-ending worsening conditions, with some drops of mordant humor of Bulgakov, Dostoevsky, Gogol, Chekhov, always tainted with some melancholy, tragedy or bitterness, like all those suicides of Dostoevsky's, possibly the very heart of the unfathomable Russian soul, as sorrowful and crying as the vastness of the melodic oceans of Tchaikovsky's, and as hopeless as the love of desperation of Dr. Zhivago, disillusioned unto immolation. There is nothing else to do but to resign. The only possibility concerning Russia is the summary. The less said about her, the better. It's an abyss of no end, no bottom and no termination, to the agony of this gigantic unsurveyability of human suffering. Ryssland, mastodontnation av skrymmande abnormitet, det hårdaste förtrycket i historien och den djupaste av själar, nästan bara blodigheter och massakrer i all din historia, gruvligt tyranni, universellt martyrium och lidande, en tragedi som aldrig upphört att bli värre, med dock några stänk av bister humor som av Gogol, Chekhov, Dostojevskij och Bulgakov, alltid färgad av melankoli och bitter tragedi, som alla Dostojevskijs självmordsfall, måhända själva hjärtat av den outrannsakliga ryska själen, lika sorglig och otröstligt gråtande som melodiken i Tchaikovskijs oceans oändlighet av tårar, och så hopplös som den desperata kärleken hos Pasternaks doktor Zhivago, desillusionerad intill självförintelse. Det finns ej något annat man kan göra utom resignera, då det enda man egentligen kan säga som summering av det ryska fallet är, ju mindre sagt, dess bättre. Det är en oöverskådlig avgrund av gigantisk smärta, utan botten, utan slut och utan någon ände, i den oerhörda gränslösheten av den ryska själens lidande. Finland. You only have one native country all your life, which you are bound to for your life, and never can let down or ever let it leave your mind, especially if it's a country to be proud of, like my Finland, coldest in the world together with Siberia, Greenland and Alaska, but of some integrity and honesty beyond this world, which made it stand up stalwartly against all odds, against the Soviet Union in the Winter War, when Stalin thought he just would smash and grab it, which did not turn out so easy. Russia losing armies sacrificed for nothing, while the Finnish losses were but individuals. Invaluable every one of them, immortal martyrs for resistance and defense against oppression, tyranny, dictatorship and Holocaust, the cruelty of Stalin being worse than Hitler's for its subtlety and methodology for 30 years, transforming Russia to a terror death camp. Finland came out of that combat with her independence, freedom and integrity unscathed, but for the losses of Karelia and her bravest sons. Should I not then be proud of such a mother, hard but beautiful in coldness and detachment, but deep under with a heart of purity and honesty that I have never anywhere around the world found anything to match the splendor of? Finland. Du har ett enda fosterland i livet som du tillhör hela livet för att det har gett dig livet, varför du ej någonsin kan svika det och ej ens släppa det i tankarna, speciellt om det är hedervärt som Finland, kallast i all världen med Sibirien, Grönland och Alaska, men med en integritet och ärlighet av icke denna världen, som fick detta lilla land i vinterkriget att beslutsamt och mot alla odds försvara sig mot Stalin när han trodde att han bara kunde slå ihjäl och ta det, vilket visade sig inte vara fullt så enkelt, då Sovjetunionen såg arméerna försvinna, offrade för ingenting, allt medan Finlands ovärderliga förluster blott var individer, landets bästa söner, stupade som hjältar och martyrer i ett bittert envist motstånd mot förtryck och tyranni, förintelse och diktatur, då Stalins grymhet var långt digrare än Hitlers, för sin metodiks subtilitet i 30 år att transformera Ryssland till ett fångläger av terror. Finland kom ut levande från striden med sin frihet och självständighet bevarade, med blott förlusten av Karelen jämte sina bästa söner. Skulle jag då inte vara stolt att ha en sådan moder, hård men vacker i sin kyla och distans, men under ytan med ett hjärta av en sådan innerlighet, ärlighet och renhet att jag aldrig någonstans i världen någonsin har kunnat finna något lika underbart. Austria, the golden capital of music, led the world to harmony for centuries, spreading universal joy and beauty actually to every corner of the earth, by the divine endowment of adorable musicians such as Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven and Brahms, the Strausses, Schubert, Bruckner, Mahler, Lehar, and innumerable others, prophets of the highest creativity and masters of the only universal language, music. Austria was never a colonial power and was never taken seriously as an imperial power, broken and humiliated by Napoleon and Germany, and massacred and quartered to a fragment after the First World War, while it prospered still by art and authors such as Schnitzler, Stefan Zweig, the leading humanist and pacifist, Rainer Maria Rilke, Hofmannsthal, and Dr. Freud, eventually humiliated once too much by Anschluss and the Second World War, which turned Vienna desolate to ruins and starvation. Well, we still have all the music, and that sound of music will forever be the finest part of Austria, completely ruling it to its sustained immortal glory. Thank you, Austria, for all your world of music. Österrike. Musikens gyllene huvudstad gav världen harmoni genom sekler, genom spridandet av skönhetsglädje till vartenda hörn av hela världen, genom så gudabenådade musikartister såsom Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven och Brahms, familjen Strauss och Schubert, Bruckner, Mahler, Lear, bland så många andra högsta kreativitetsprofeter för det enda språk vi har som är universellt, musiken. Österrike var ej någonsin en kolonialmakt och togs aldrig helt på allvar som imperium, ruinerat och förnedrat av Napoleon och Tyskland och styckat efter första världskriget till ett fragment som dock fortsatte blomstra kulturellt och leda världen genom sådana som humoristen Schnitzler, Stefan Zweig, den store pacifisten, humanisten, Rilke, Hofmannsthal och Dr. Freud, tills andra världskriget gav en förintelse för mycket och lämnade Wien som en svältstad av mest rykande ruiner. Men musiken lever kvar, och den skall alltid kvarstå som det bästa av det gamla Österrike och fullständigt dominera det till dess och världens fromma. Tacka Österrike för musiken. Burma, a small tribute to Aung San Suu Kyi. My lady, bravest in the world, who never really wanted to become a politician, but preferred to stay with flower decorations and to play the piano. You were only 2 years old when your great father was assassinated, who gave Burma independence and democracy with British blessings, and was murdered by the enemies of peace and of democracy, who have controlled the country practically ever since, and ruthlessly, since 1947, 60 years of military tyranny, and, as in all dictatorships, of total limitless corruption. They today maintain the main monopoly of heroin in Southeast Asia, which provide them with enormous fortunes while the people starve, the military power being backed up by the communists of China, without which, most probably, the nation would long since have been a prospering democracy. Instead, the younger generation is kept down by drugs, 2/3 of all drug addicts being positive with HIV, with no financial means or possibility to even test themselves, which means that Burma probably, because of the dictatorship, has the worst AIDS statistics in all Asia. Half of all the heroin that reaches USA, Australia and America is manufactured in the Golden Triangle of Burma, Thailand and Laos, which the military governors of Burma naturally has supported, since it stabilizes their position, so that the production keeps on doubling. So the people protest and the military shoot them for the safety of their heroin financial empire and their extreme blindfolded limitless corruption. China, by the way, is also chief supporter of Robert Mugabe. Burma, med en liten hyllning till Aung San Suu Kyi. En av världens mest beundransvärda damer ville aldrig bli politiker egentligen, men föredrog att spela piano och blomsterdekorationer. Hon var bara 2 år när hon fick sin fader mördad, som gav Burma frihet och självständighet som suverän demokrati med britternas välsignelse, och mördades av girighetens och maktgalenskapens förespråkare, som sedan dess i 60 år i stort sett oavbrutet kontrollerat landet med förtryck och våld och hållit makten, som i alla diktaturer, genom sanslös obegränsad korruption, och innehar idag det största monopolet i Sydostasien idag på heroin, som det uppmuntrar allmänt bruk av, varför produktionen har fördubblats sedan 10 år. Och Burma har i Asien den värsta statistiken när det gäller aids och narkomaner, som det nästan alla har. Av allt det heroin som når Australien och Amerika är hälften producerat i den gyllene triangeln, Burma, Thailand, Laos, medan Burmas värsta tillstånd är medveten militär inrikespolitik av diktaturen som tar hand om miljardvinsterna allt medan folket svälter. Därför protesterar de och därför skjuter militären ner dem, då de känner sig så trygga i sin säkra position, då Kina understödjer dem och håller dem om ryggen och uppmuntrar deras hårda militärförtryck och korruption, liksom det också understödjer andra korruptioner som folkmordets diktaturregering i Sudan och katastrofen i Zimbabwe med Robert Mugabe. Bohemia, the land that never was, of artists and bohemians, stretches all round the world, including every free, creative spirit, living basically on their dreams alone, but in reality in chronic poverty. But theirs is all the world, with all its beauty, charm and freedom, which it is their privilege to manage and sustain, to keep it flowing, flying and alive, to show the world there is a higher state of living than just on the ground in humdrum ordinaries. So their realm outwits and stretches beyond all politics, beyond all mundanity into eternal freedom, where the spirit has the right to soar and keep in sovereign superiority above the world and all its troubles, to sustain the real life of the soul, for better ends and means than just mortality. Bohemien, landet ingenstans som aldrig fanns, av konstnärer och bohemer, inkluderar hela världen och varenda fri självständigande som mest lever blott på sina drömmar, men i verkligheten i obotlig fattigdom. Men deras är all världen med dess skönhet, charm och frihet, som det är just deras privilegium att bidra till och hålla flytande och flygande och levande, för att bevisa ständigt att det finns ett högre liv än bara kall materialism. Ty deras liv utklassar hela politiken och går bortom den och världsligheten i sin evighets totala frihet, där alena själen har sin suveräna rätt att råda, överlägsen allt och hela världens alla bråk, för att bevara verklighetens sanna liv för bättre ändamål än bara dödlighet. No time for love. The devastation of a failure of a love affair is more often than not enough to keep the lover out of love forever, or at least as long as he can do without it, as long as he can make resistance and withstand it, and as long as he does not completely languish, thirsting, hungering and suffering to death, like one deserted in the desert. For that moment always comes when you no longer can endure, but must surrender to that irresistibility and urge that is of all life's factors the most vital, seeking that salvation of a sound and natural release of all your life's most fundamental powers. Never say you have no time for love. That time will come when least expected, uninvited and surprisingly, since love can never long be kept locked out of doors and out of time. Headaches and heartaches. So shall we then let go, since all we cause each other is incessant worries, through our love that never leaves us any peace, but only trouble us with headaches and incessant heartaches. Freedom is the motto of our love, and there is nothing more important or invaluable, which at any cost must be secured and strived for always, since it is the only thing and means that can give any life at all, to our love and any possibility for it to breathe, for we need air under our wings to keep on flying freely and incessantly, since going down to earth is certain death, since all our life is only ideal flying splendor, like to any common swift Cambridge, beloved town of knowledge, thanks for your idyllic depths of consummation in the field of the pursuit of truth and wisdom, heart of tolerance and freedom, both of conscience and of thought, while Oxford seemed to me more introverted, focused on the ego, its enhancement and complacency, in narcissistic dwindling spiral of the blind alleys of egoism. You, in humbler and sincerer aspirations, strive beyond yourself and this demented world of vanity. What you already have accomplished you ignore, to rather go ahead fixed on the future and beyond, to ever keep advancing rather than look back, for curiosity, to keep revealing what is round the corner, and continuing the research round the bend, to never stop investigating the black holes of ever more alarming lacks of our knowledge, but to always strive beyond the universe, to never stop confirming how exactly anything is possible. Thanks for adopting me, and I will ever faithfully remain one of your pupils of eternity. The hippie culture may be in the long run most important of our modern cultures, is set off already long before the First World War by Monte Verità in Switzerland above Ascona, marked by authors such as Daphne du Maurier and Erich Maria Remarque, sincerely seeking healthier alternatives to modern civilization by returning forthrightly to nature, stressing vegetarianism and outdoor life, in some ways in the vein of Tolstoy and Rousseau. The concept was completely lost during the two world wars, but then came back, and with a vengeance, in the 60s, as a universal rebel movement triggered by the Vietnam War, directed against the derailing of America after the Kennedy assassination, as a direct, natural, spontaneous reaction against world insanity. They say it brought another kind of weird insanity instead, but it was not just freaking out with drugs and escapism, but most of all a rebirth of the right of fantasy and creativity, exploding in experiments of boldness in the field of art, in clothes, in fashion, colours, music, films, and liberation in the way of living, the ideal returning of a sane life close to nature. It has never died, but keeps on being the one sane alternative to all the madness of the world, considering the politics of the establishment, of military powers constantly resorting to lunatic wars with tyranny and bombs and the destruction of humanity, especially now in the times of global crisis of the climate change, which proves capitalism and egoism, short-sighted politics of power, greed, materialism and conformism to the establishment, all wrong from the beginning. Love at work. Why do we work so hard for nothing except vanity, it seems, but still so many predicate that work alone gives life a meaning. So they set their love at work, indulging in their work as in their love, and make their work their love and the justification for their lives, as if life without work would give them a bad conscience and debar them from their love and all life's meaning. But the meaning is of course just love. But in order to acquire it and reach it, you must work hard to deserve it. And the more you work, the more you do deserve it, which is probably the only meaning work imports, to make it something like a proper entrance gate to the deserved love that is its own reward. Forbidden remedy. When you are alone with all those wardrobe skeletons of losses irretrievable, of overwhelming melancholy and nostalgia that is the resulting madness of love lost forever, you will grasp at any straw of any infallibly failing quality to get at least some faint illusion of regaining something of your losses, like some phony medicine that only will deceive you. And that's how some people turn to drugs, a self-seduction of some soothing liberty from all your pains of body, heart and soul. And who has any heart then to forbid it? If LSD trips help you fly away from the unbearability of your reality, if marijuana temporarily relieves your heartaches, if injections or some snow helps you get on with that insufferable Golgotha of your invalid life, if tranquilizing dreams are better than the hell of your reality, who can debar you from that substitute of love, which might at least give some positive illusions of that love you never had but only lost? Not I. I grant you any license, for I know that any kind of love, and even flights from love and artificial love, at least if it is felt as love, can be as good as any love, and always better than no love at all. The secret garden. You came to me like through a hazy dream of lurid beauty veiled in mists, of unclear nowhereness, but more real than reality, directly from a distant past, of unknown and unconscious friendship, growing all the while clandestinely like some strange secret garden cultivated out of reach of any dirty hands, to suddenly appear in mature glory, opening some gates to paradise that I was not aware that they existed. Will it last, or is it just a dream? The future hides the answer out of sight for both of us, and I dare hardly even touch it, this amazing dream of such unheard of beauty, that I will remain enchanted, willingly preferring never to wake up, to risk trespassing and to harm the tiniest portion of this paradise of possibilities, so intact a botanic garden and so perfectly ideal. Is it possible? Is it possible to have a friend whom you can trust implicitly and have as your initiate and intimate companion for a lasting and infallible security? Is it possible to have a love that never fails but only grows, and who will stay in touch whatever happens, faithfully in daily interchange of trust? Is it possible to have a dream come true of only pure ideals of open-mindedness, a friend in every need who will not overrun or fail you, but remain in honest contact always, free of any shade of jealous egoism, and with only human understanding, patience, love, and warmth of heart, without the doubts of second thoughts? Yes, it is possible, but you must wait for it with patience. Venice. carrying the epithet La Serenissima since the morning of history. Salviamo Venezia! The supreme serenity of cities, you were timeless born and are still much ahead of time, without the hell of car pollution and with every street for only walkers. You were long the only democratic state of Italy until Napoleon came and trampled down your ancient republic, ending that great age of yours, of 1,000 years of liberty, democracy and tolerance. But still, you are the foremost queen of beauty among all the world's most beauteous towns in Italy, resplendent still, with none of your past glorious ages faded or forgotten. Now new threats are turning up, much worse and much more serious than that corporal 200 years ago who called your piazza the most beautiful of banquet halls in Europe, since oceans might be rising to extinguish Holland, New Orleans, New York, and you, among too many others, Bangladesh, the Maldives, any lowlands by the sea. And there's a challenge, not for only you, but for all mankind, to live up to face their own responsibility for having sullied and endangered all civilization, nature, and the world with ordinary egoistic greed, which did not make your beauty, which rather rose from the survival through the centuries of wars, invasions, natural disasters, and barbaric storms. And thus you stand a monument of beauty and survival, which will outlast all the vanities of this so greedily polluted world. Venedig. Bland städer står du högst i skönhet och serenitet, du otidsenliga som föddes tidlös och som alltjämt ligger före tiden, fri från bilavgasers helvete, där varje gata endast är förgående. Du var i sekler i Italien ensam som demokrati, tills Bonaparte kom och trampade ner din antika republik och avslutade ditt millennium av frihet, tolerans, demokrati och oberoende. Men ändå är du alltjämt främst bland drottningar i skönhet, bland vår världs mest vackra städer i Italien, strålande med intet glömt av allt ditt stora härliga förflutna. Men nu kommer nya hot som mycket värre är än den korpralen som benämnde för 200 år sedan din piazza Europas skönaste salong, då oceanerna kan stiga för att släcka ut New Orleans, Nederländerna, Maldiverna och Bangladesh och dig, bland allt för många andra städer invid havet. Och där har vi nu en utmaning för dig och hela världen, att ta ansvaret och leva upp till det, för att ha lortat ner och skadat hela civilisationen med att hota allt liv i naturen genom girighetens hänsynslöshet, som inte skapade din skönhet, vilken snarare kom till genom århundradens prövningar av krig och invasioner, katastrofer och barbarstormar, så att du blev till något av ett monument för skönhetens och humanismens överlevnad, som minsann skall fortsätta att klara sig förbi all fåfäng ävlan i den här så förorenade, korrupta världen. Hungary, the powerhouse of freedom, always bursting with dynamics, hotly flowing in amazing, dazzling music, not just of the gypsies, but in the mentality, and everywhere you were always in the front line whenever there were quests for freedom under Kossuth, Sandor Peterfi, Franz Liszt, and leading Eastern Europe against Soviet Russia, sacrificing everything in 1956 for dreams of freedom, which at last gave some reward in 1989, when you let up the border for the Eastern Germans, which resulted in the democratic triumph avalanche, releasing all of Eastern Europe in the domino dynamics of the freedom victory. I always loved you with your splendid capital, one of the finest and most beautiful in Europe, the Danube Queen crowned on the hills in the most capital romantic setting, found anywhere of almost any city in all Europe. Keep your colors flying and your music going, and you will be celebrated ever for that freedom, pathos, and initiative that never could be quenched by any tyranny in history. Ungern. En dynamisk frihetskrutdurk, alltid explosiv och flödande av het musik, ej bara av zigenare men överallt i hjärtat av mentaliteten. Du var alltid framom främsta linjen under Lajos Kossuth, Sandor Petöfi, Franz Liszt, i frihetspatos och i ledningen för hela Östeuropa mot Sovjetunionen när det gällde oberoende till varje pris, och offrande dig själv och allt år 56 för frihetsdrömmar som fick sin belöning och gav äntligt resultat år 89 när du öppnade din gräns för östtyskar att fly, som resulterade i triumflavinen av demokrati för hela Östeuropas äntliga befrielse, i dominodynamiskt segertåg till frihet. Alltid älskade jag dig med din exotiskt sköna huvudstad, en av de vackraste i hela Europa, Donaudrottningen, storslaget krönande de höga kullarna i kanske det mest storslaget romantiska av alla lägen för en stad i Europa. Håll din härlighet igång med din fantastiska musik, och du skall alltid firas för ditt frihetspatos och initiativ som aldrig kunde krossas någonsin av något tyranni i all historien. The danger of relationships. There is no challenge more extreme than that of close relationships, since every one of them presents a mortal danger, that of getting burned by coming up too close, to knowing all too well the other's secrets, opening the cupboards full of skeletons that never can be cancelled or let down, of past and failed and capsized loves that you could never quite accept as lost. Each life is full of them, and there is nothing more exciting and more dangerous than to explore them as they go on living, haunting you like zombies. You know all too well your own ghosts, and you live in constant fear of them, associating with them every night, involuntarily or willingly. Imagine then the parallel experiences of others, with as many ghosts but with completely different stories, and put two of those disturbing bags together, and what will you get? An abyss without end of doubled, troublesome experiences, each worse than any of the others, to which there can be no end of bothersome, exciting, and intriguing exploration. The heartbreaker. The worst thing is that it could happen just to anybody, and no one wants to talk about it. You just want to disappear, shut up your heart and all your life, to lick your wounds and kill your pain, which only makes it worse. It hurts when buds in spring are bursting, but it hurts so infinitely more when flowers in full bloom of beauty just get trampled down by inconsideration and short-sighted egoism, which lives by driving over victims, leaving them behind and never caring, while the victims were the ones who cared. Hjärtekrossaren. Det värsta är att det kan hända vem som helst, men ingen tycker om att tala om det. Man vill bara stänga in sig, tillsluta sitt hjärta, för att snörpa åt sin smärta, vilket bara gör den värre. Visst gör det ont när knoppar brister, men långt ondare ändå, när vackra blommor trampas ner av tanklöshet och egoism, som lever blott för att gå över lik och strunta i dem efteråt. Symbiosis. You are part of me, and I cannot deny it. Since your feelings are my own, whatever you feel, I feel also, and thus your tears are mine, and all your life is my responsibility. In spite of all your faults and lacks and wants, which cause us constant worries and are criticizable indeed, I can't get you out of my heart, no matter how you wound and stab it. Hurt me and destroy me, but you must stay there, caged in my own soul and freedom, which is all your life as well as mine. Thus are we chained together by our destiny, for good, for worse, for life, forever, and all that we can do about it is the best of this quixotic situation, of a tender love that hurts but cannot find a cure, of living by its wounds and bleeding constantly to death in never-ending continuity. Love at work. Balance must needs be preserved, or love cannot survive. The bread of love is continuity, for if it does not last, it is not even worth exploiting. But if it be short-lived and short-sighted, something to be sorry for, and afterwards regret, and maybe even be ashamed of. Loving you is the more holy for me, the less I consume it, use it, waste it, spend it, and devour it, since I believe in love and therefore worship it, and rather keep it safely at some distance than take any risks of harming it. That's why my life instead is wasted as a workaholic, but, mind you, creatively, constructively, and positively. Since a man's work is his test of competence, and without competence there cannot be a lasting love. So let me keep on working for sustaining my creativeness and for my love of you. Florence. Dante hated Florence, called it dark and dreary, and was driven out of it and robbed of all his life, his family and home and riches, like by some stepmother cruelty. And somehow I agree, there always was some latent madness there, a deadly threat to creativity, to the dynamic positive expansion, to the craving freedom of the mind, and always violent reactions. I was never quite at home there, but felt pressed by the imposing splendor of the only capital of arts there still is in the world. Respectfully I keep my distance, leaving her in peace like a museum, and prefer to keep my distance only as a passer-by, not to disturb or wake up all those monsters of the past. Florens. Dante hade anledning att avsky Florens, kallade det mörkt och dystert och beklämmande och blev fördriven därifrån politiskt av papister och berövad all sin egendom, karriär och ställning, sin familj och hem och säkerhet, av en styvmoderlig mentalitet och grymhet, och jag tycker mig förstå hans avsky och tendera att ge honom rätt. Min upplevelse av den så imponerande pompösa staden var förjämnad av en sorts latent försåtlig galenskap. Ett dödligt hot mot kreativiteten och mot all dynamisk, expansiv positivism, mot själens krav och längtan efter frihet som jämt tog sig våldsamma, reaktionära uttryck. Jag var aldrig hemma där, men kände mig smått pressad av den imposanta skrytsamhetens härlighet i staden som alltjämt är ensam som en konstens huvudstad. Jag håller min distans till henne med respekt och lämnar henne som museum helst i fred, som en förbipasserare för att ej störa och riskera att uppväcka gångna tiders spöken och fantomers raseri till pånyttfödelse. Escape. I long to get away from all these troubles emanating from relationships that only seem to offer turbulences, worries, problems, strifes, and chaos, far away beyond all conflicts, alienated from the human race, in healthy isolation, maybe in some monastery somewhere, without cell phones, without telephones, without the internet, and without civilization, where you can relax from all the hurricanes of torturesome relationships that only sabotage your life and kill your peace and stress you out into a burnt-out nutcase of no good to anyone, and least of all to you yourself. So let me vanish and abscond, so that I may at last sit back and quietly sort out all those persistent, paranoid love affairs, forget my failures and disasters, and just laugh it all to hell. Limbo. I was happy when I saw you, and most miserable when I lost you, by the wanton cruelty of fate that never hesitates to ruin you whenever possible, and most especially on rare occasions when you finally think you have reached some happiness. It is the law of circumstances, natural, impersonal, that what you most would wish would last must least of all have any chance to last. But worst of all is this horrific lack of certainty that leaves you hanging in the air in most outrageous suspense, wondering and brooding unto madness whether love is really lost or not. And she that left you does not know herself, and therefore can't inform you. Friends of comfort tell you, let her go, and go yourself another way, and find love anywhere except where it has left you. Has it left you? No, but it is gone. There's the problem. Love unanswered, unfulfilled, and alienated, and there is another cosmic law for you. Love never can be satisfied. Sexism. If you want sex, keep out of me and stick to gigolos and mayflies, temporary satisfactions that will ditch you afterwards and willingly forget the corpses they walked over, treating you like any ordinary slut, reducing you to common status of just any prostitute, a common girl who wants to get laid, ignoring the inevitable aftermath that afterwards she will be crying all her life. I wanted love and friendship, of endurability and lasting worth, true intimacy, trust and faith, a friend in whom you could confide, and not just superficial sexual satisfaction. Keep then to your prostitutes, adventurers and tramps, and common shallow marriage swindlers, who will just exploit you, use you and devour you, to leave you afterwards dissolved in never-ending tears. Om du bara vill ha sex, så håll dig borta ifrån mig och dina händer från mitt liv, och håll dig till dagfjärilar och gigolos med deras tillfälliga tillfredsställelser som alltid innebär en skrotning av dig efteråt, då ytlighetens hjärtekrossare så gärna glömmer alla lik de lämnar efter sig i skiten och oreparerbara ruiner, där du finner dig då vara reducerad till en vanlig trasa och i högre status än vad prostituerat fnask som helst. En vanlig tjej som tanklöst traktar efter ligg och struntar i dess bittra efterskörd som bara är att gråta hela livet. Kärleken och vänskapen jag sökte var av det mer varaktiga, meningsfulla slaget, med intimitet och tillit, trogenhet och sanning. Någon vän man kunde lita på och helt förtro sig till. Att ha i sitt förtroende för alltid, dagligen, och inte att få utnyttja för animalisk sexualitet. Håll dig då till lättköpta sol- och vårare, omogna amatörer, äventyrare och ytliga utnyttjare, som när de blivit mätta på dig och ser driften ersatt av uttjatad ledsnad, lämnar dig förbrukad och upplöst i ensamhet i evighetens sorgefloders bittra tårar. Sad reflection. More often than not you hear of happy divorces and unhappy marriages, less and less about the contrary. This is our backward world that tends to turn all natural and normal things the other way, like in the horrors of George Orwell's future world, which now already is a nightmare of the past, while nightmares of the present keep accelerating, building up unto perhaps another Noah's flood. And where did love get lost and disappear in the destructive course of history? No, it was always there, but always under cover, hiding to protect itself and to survive in spite of all, with difficulty, but occasionally to give signs of life, triumphing suddenly in beauty, mainly in the works of art, to prove and manifest eternity, in contrary to all the mortal vanity of history, and showing that if man and history keeps killing life, love always does the opposite, to always triumph in the end. Rome, what a waste of history. You carried on the famous Greek democracy by your republic for some centuries, but then, alas, there was a fellow Julius Caesar who decided to transform it into a dictatorship and was unbearable enough to actually succeed in turning over a republican democracy into its contrary, and was, in fact, just for that reason murdered, which, alas, had just the contrary effect to what it was intended, turning Julius Caesar into the most formidable martyr, which established that abominable Roman Empire of incurable corruption, decay, moral dissolution, and the gradual downfall of all standards of civilization, for 400 years before it finally collapsed by its own rottening putrefaction and megalomania, introducing the dark ages of 1,000 years. And what a waste of history! It was all there, the splendid civilization, an enlightenment of science and philosophy, destroyed by the short-sightedness of egoism and power madness, crazy and inhuman emperors, and the establishment of some absurd Christianity, of superstition, bigotry, and brainwash mythomania, to replace all light and realism and common sense with paranoia of premeditated purpose, to lead all the world astray by evilly controlling it, through the black magic of established superstition, to impose a realm of terror for 1,000 years, by strict intolerance outlawing every possible enlightenment. The Catholic politic church is still there, dominating Rome and trying still to dominate the world, but Rome survived more easily without it, and is known today as the most splendid town of Italy and history, a palimpsest of all the worst mistakes of history, quite open, obvious, and self-evident for anyone who wants to learn what those refused to grasp and learn who put the burning to the stake of Saint Giordano Bruno. Rom, vilket slöseri med historien. Du höll igång den grekiska demokratin genom några århundraden med din republik, men sedan kom boven Julius Caesar, som beslöt att göra om den till en diktatur och gjorde sig totalt odräglig med att lyckas och blev därför just ordentligt mördad, vilket dock ej fick det resultat som önskats, men istället gjorde gubben Julius Caesar till martyr för diktaturen, som just därigenom etablerades till historiens skam och nesa och fördärv. Då allt vad diktaturen ledde till, naturligtvis, var korruption, förfall, degenerering och all civilisationens långsamma, utdragna undergång i 4 seklers tid, tills den till slut definitivt kollapsade av slapphet, ruttenhet och megalomani, som blev en inkörsport till medeltidens mörka barbari som varade i 1000 år. Och vilket slöseri med tiden! Allting hade vunnits, vetenskap, filosofi, arkitektur. Antiken var en enda lång upplysningstid som bara krossades av inskränkt egoism, vidskepelse, intolerans och fanatism, representerade av omänskliga, giriga och galna kejsare som ursäktade sig med en absurd och etablerad kristendom. En statskyrka av hjärntvätt och mytomani att ersätta all realism och sunt förnuft med genom paranoia och en avsiktlig ond vilja att behärska, vilseleda och förtrycka hela världen. Genom 1000 år av diktatorisk och barbarisk terror. Medan minsta strävan efter upplysning och kunskap straffades med exkommunisering, kättarbål och lögnen av ett evigt helvete. Den romerska katolska kyrkan lever alltjämt och försöker ännu dominera hela världen, men Rom överlevde den till trots och är berömt som en av världens härligaste städer, en fantastisk palimpsest av all historiens värsta misstag, öppen, uppenbar och självklar såsom lärdomskälla för en var som önskar lära känna och förstå allt det som de inkvisitorer aldrig fattade som satte tändstickan till bålet för Giordano Bruno. Spolad dikt. Efter sonettaftonen den 13 oktober bra att läsa på toaletten. Det är inte lätt att skriva dikter och man måste följa reglers strikthet som kan tyngre bli än hårda plikter och urarta till en ren besatthet av trams svällande orddiarréer, av barockt bizarreris förryckthet utan vett som tygplastorkidéer, men det är fritt fram för sanslöshet i den poetiska licensens dårskap, varför man med frisläppt samvetslöshet lugnt kan komma fram med dumt konstnärskap, utflippat i vad form som helst i frihet. Därför spolas nu den här sonetten utan prut rakt ner i toaletten. Den roligaste fest jag varit med om. Jag minns ingenting. What is poetry? A hopeless but brave effort. It defies all definition, since it should be undescribable, to be at all convincing, an impalpable abstraction of word painting with some meaning which persistently avoids to get pinned down, a mystery of beauty with a spiritual sense that does not disappear and never is forgotten. Vad är poesi? Ett hopplöst men tappert försök. Den undgår all definition då den bör vara obeskrivlig för att kunna vara övertygande, en opåtaglig abstraktion, ett målande med ord som inte saknar mening men dock undflyr att bli gripbart, ett mysterium av skönhet med en andlig innebörd som ej förgås och aldrig glöms. Advice to a shattered friend. You never seem to learn, my friend, although you were deceived before, and many times, and now it's once too much, it seems, and still you will not learn. And there's no remedy against a lack of wisdom, if not even your experience will teach you. However, don't let your frustrated love make you collapse, break down, disintegrate, go into boozing, moral bankruptcy and self-destruction. For if your love fails you and goes into bed with someone less than you, it's not your fault. If you let that affect you, you have lost and are defeated, which in love you never must allow. It is a challenge. If you lose one girl, there are so many others you can love, so many lonesome darlings waiting just for you, left over and surviving after shipwrecks, like yourself in spite of all. And no survivor ever will admit defeat. If you have lost one whom you loved because she found another, there will be no end to all those others who deserve you more than she. The hour of the wolf or the truth. When you wake up at night too early in the morning from a nightmare in cold sweat of losses and of being used, and can but think of him or her, that partner who betrayed you, who saw personal relationships as a means to use to only further one's own interests, then it's time for a divorce. When love becomes the opposite from lack of nourishment, or the betrayal of the partner, that's the cry, abandon ship! And if you don't, you will go under. Sail away while there is time, while there is still a lifeboat, and a possible escape from the black hole of anger constantly increasing, violence and force and furious melodrama, feelings of injustice and grim violation, hopelessness, despair, and nightmares without end, that just will suck you down, in one way only, down the drain, into the bottomless and final abyss of inevitable immolation. Spain. The cruelty of Spain was evident from the beginning, with a hard and proud mentality, ideal for an autocracy of hard intolerance made worse by fear and superstition, ruled by great inquisitors, unique for Spain, that ordered the extermination of all Indians of the New World, even if they tried cooperation, being loyal, faithful, humble Christians. And thus were the Inca and the Aztec empires plundered and reduced to nothing by the greed disguised in bigotry of Spain, that also persecuted all the Jews and Arabs, hunting them forever down and out. Francisco Goya saw the Spanish soul, exposing it in probably the darkest art that ever was produced before the Guernica. But still, in all this darkness, there is hope. There is no finer dancing, folkloristic music, gypsy culture, and artistic temperament than in Andalusia, the fabled country of Granada and Sevilla, that saw Lorca, Falla, Figaro, Don Juan, Granados, and Albéniz, among others, flourish splendidly in the most dashing art of Europe. Forget the bullfights, Francoism, the Civil War, the Inquisition horrors, the intolerance and bloody history, and sing and dance instead, all night at the bodegas, that will outlast all the lunacy of history. Spanien. Spaniens grymhet var notoriskt uppenbar från början, med en hård och stolt mentalitet, idealisk för autokrati och hård intolerans, förvärrad av vidskepelse och fruktan, ledd av storinkvisitorerna, unika för det spanska väldet, som var ansvariga för indianutrotningen i nya världen, även fast indianerna försökte samarbeta, som lojala, ödmjuka och troende naiva kristna. Och så plundrades och utplånades inkaväldet och aztekerna, förintade till ingenting av Spaniens fanatism, som också utrotade och förföljde judar och araber, som fördrevs från Spanien för alltid. Målaren Francisco Goya såg den spanska själen och avbildade den avgrundslikt och mardrömsaktigt i den kanske mörkaste av alla målargärningar och hemskaste tills Guernica kom till. Men även i allt detta mörker finns det ett hopp. Det finns en härligare danskonst än i denna folkloristiska zigenartradition, musikkultur, i Andalusien med dess temperament av andlig hetta, Lorcas, Figaros, de Fallas hemtrakt med Granada och Sevilla, Don Juan Granados och Albéniz, bland så många andra glänsande förmågor i Europas mest medryckande och granna konst. Så glöm då Franco-diktaturen och tjurfäktningarna, det omänskliga inbördeskriget och inkvisitionen, denna långa blodiga historia av intolerans. Och sjung och dansa fritt istället, hela natten i botegan, under smattrande energisk eld av kastanjetter, vars musik skall överleva all historiens fåfänga och dårskap. Sicily, the cradle of the modern Western Europe, where the sonnet was invented at the universal court of Frederick II Hohenstaufen in Palermo, then the center of the world and heart of universal culture, which was outrageously raped by papacy and its politics of reaction, greed, suppression, and all opposites to culture and expansion. The entire royal Norman family of heroes being categorically persecuted to extinction for their liberal free-thinking views and universal tolerance. You never managed to recover, blessed island of serenity and beauty, generosity, divinity, and richness of imagination, from the persecution of invaders, French and papal tyrants, so that your renaissance only could survive through Florence, which made a second effort and, although succeeding better, still was also there suppressed by violence and beaten down for nothing but that they were right, which every spirit in existence always was, who just maintained the right of freedom, of integrity and mind and conscience. Still, Palermo is still there, with the whole island of dynamic splendor, which at any moment may bring forth anew such champions for humanity and justice as the Stauffer Frederick II, the grandfather of Italy, the diplomatic genius, who was only and unique in conquering Jerusalem without a drop of blood on either side, the only politician ever who succeeded in maintaining peace between the Christians, Jews and Muslims, for which he was banished, excommunicated by the Church, which never could accept a non-dogmatic mind. The Renaissance was thus held up for a few centuries, but nothing in the long run can resist or stop the universal human urge of life for freedom. Pakistan, the bomb attack in Karachi aimed against Benazir Bhutto, leaving so far 136 dead. 136 victims. For what? They tried to kill a woman coming home after 8 years of exile, engaged some willing suicide bombers who would do anything to upset the peace process of Pakistan towards democracy, law and order, and obstruct any effort of reconciliation between the military and democracy, trying to kill off all possibilities of cooperation at once, for the glory of fundamentalism, anarchy, the Talibans, and terror, while they only killed themselves, and brought with them 136 innocents, women and children, old people and civilians, and anyone who just wanted to say welcome to the mother of the nation coming back. It's not politics, it's fundamental mass suicide, hitting Islam at its roots by using violence in aiming at the contrary, which always boomerangs and kills the future instead of building it. No prostitute. Sorry that I am no good for you, no money, no position, no means to spoil you, no driver's license and no property, but only failures, bankruptcies, defeats, adversities and trials is what I can offer. And I am afraid I am not even good for company, just working, boring hard all of the time. No time at home, no time for sex, no luxuries, no banquets, nothing special and no evenings out. Just humdrum hard work all the time and nothing for it. Well, at least I am no prostitute. Our world, Ours is a world of beauty so much finer than the ordinary world of strife, vulgarity, and commonness, of egoism, short-sightedness, and vanity, while ours lasts forever, gilded by the harmony of unsurpassed nobility, of the refinement and idealism of abstract truth, as found by geniuses like Handel, Beethoven, Chopin, and Brahms, a higher world of thought than any brutal realism, and actually a truer world than any real one. Since we know the key and have it, let's just stick to it and keep it, and forget about the rest that keeps committing all their follies on the road to self-destruction, better without us, who are reserved for better purposes than just the ordinariness of vanity. Islands in the flood. Is that the fate of knowledge, good experience, and acquired wisdom? Too, the more it is developed and enriched, become the less appreciated and more inaccessible and isolated, as an outcast island of some rarity, uniqueness, and exclusiveness. Forgotten and ignored, alone in this mad flood of media rubbish, drowning the whole world in brainwash, this derailed civilization of pollution, self-destructive greed, unnaturalness, and the meaningless obsession with superficiality. The prophets sticking to the truth were always persecuted and alone, unpopular, despised, and kicked aside, but they were always there, left over on deserted islands in the flood of madness of humanity, abandoning all sense, to wallow, as it seems, in anything that keeps them out of knowledge and keeps out any uncomfortable truth from their doomed lives of vanity, while those too few who care in silence keep just drudging on, maintaining life and history in spite of all, in underground, unthanked for anonymity, life and its continuity and spite of all destruction being unjustly their sole reward. Egypt, the most ancient of all surviving civilizations, and still the most imposing and impressing, for her still astonishing, mysterious pyramids, with the enigma of the Sphinx, perhaps a silent witness from before the flood of past civilizations, gone to dust and vanished long ago, perished maybe through disasters which have left no record traceable in history. But Egypt rose from nothing to become a mother of all civilizations, of Israel, Greece, and Rome, and all our Western world, to boast an unsurpassed magnificence forever. You kept that civilization flourishing through innumerable dynasties and 4 millennia, to be finally sealed up by Rome on the demission of her last queen Cleopatra, to remain closed up forever with her secrets of an unknown past of timeless eons that the Sphinx keeps musing over to himself, deriding silently all human vanity and history forever. The betrayal of beauty. The lover declining an invitation. Sorry, but I dare not risk again to find other lovers in your home, or that they come visiting while I'm with you. I'm afraid this argument will be considerable, circumstantial, comprehensive, difficult and hard for this dark lady of the sonnets, who used men for selfish means, and used her beauty ruthlessly to, without judgment, treat them as the servants of her whims, as slaves, in fact, for her fanatic feminism. The problem was that she was beautiful enough to make them flock around her, lose their senses for her beauty, and allow themselves to even be deceived by her as she replaced each lover with another, calling them all, naturally, only friends. The fact is that they all loved her, while she loved no one but herself, a victim and a slave to her own charm and beauty, failing to observe that there was anyone but her in that small world of hers. When finally she was looked through by those she had been using for no ends except her own, who never had been thanked for all their services, and found her finally to be without a trace of honesty, she had deceived them all with yet another lover, while they slaved for her for months, which was not found out until after 4 months by another ex of hers, quite accidentally, of course, and only then she had to tell them why she had been lost to all her friends for such a long time without answering communications. She is now notorious, and there's nothing I can do about it. I did everything I could for her, and find myself now free of all responsibility. It's difficult to be a woman, and as difficult to be a man, when you cannot stop loving her, no matter how much she herself betrays her beauty, while you stay on stuck with her, because you only see the beauty of the soul, to which you can but stay forever faithful. Missing. When shall we love again on fragrant beds of roses, made of our creativeness, which never can take any break for ease or pauses of good sleep, but always moves, continues, and develops, like some demon chasing us from one love to another, but get always back into each other's arms? I'm your only lover, since I'm the only one to know your soul, and I shall keep it as my own and safeguard it within my bosom, to be faithful to our love for all eternity, since I'm very well aware that this obsession never can be stopped. Israel the trickster, fought with God and won, but got as punishment a limp for life, to never quite again stand upright. Thus began his troubles, culminating in the strain with Egypt, finally admitting her to go, or forced to throw him out. We never shall be certain of the whole truth, since Egyptian history refused to talk about it. All since then the Israeli people have survived with difficulty, always against persecution, holocausts, and wars, discriminated and calumniated all through history, for constantly remaining the eternal trickster, struggling to survive and always winning, even conquering the heart of God. Eternal love. I dream of you, my love, and can't stop doing so, since you are always there, in front of me forever, in this moment that will never cease, of love without an end and boundless without limits, all because of your so sudden revelation that you always will appear to me whenever I will least expect it. That's how love works, always there, surprising, lurking, waiting to assail you, to renew your love and keep it burning like a light and symbol of eternity, to never ever leave you any more in peace, but always torture you with sensual delight that you will never tire of, since it is only love of life itself.